Congress is on the verge of passing its controversial tax bill. Both the Senate and the House are set to vote on the bill before the end of the week. That would fulfill the president's goal to get it signed by Christmas. Nancy Cordes has more from Capitol Hill.
Most Maine households will see their taxes go down.
There are now few obstacles standing between the $1.46 trillion tax plan and final passage. A pair of GOP holdouts declared their support today, and the first major independent analysis found the bill would drive up taxes for only 5% of taxpayers next year, an improvement from previous versions. The Tax Policy Center determined that taxpayers making between $50,000 and $90,000 a year would save, on average, $900, or 1.6% of their after-tax income. The very top earners would see a larger savings of 3.4%. On average, about $51,000.
It's still the case that over time, the tax cuts will generally get smaller and smaller.
Tax expert Joseph Rosenberg says one area where Republicans fell short
on a form the size of a postcard
was their promise to make the tax code simpler.
It's introducing a lot of additional complexities.
So we're not going to be able to do our taxes on a postcard?
I think the postcard is out.
Controversy simmered today over a deduction added to the bill at the last minute. Analysts say it would primarily benefit wealthy commercial real estate investors, like President Trump or Tennessee Republican Bob Corker.
The benefits are larger the more income you have.
So if I own an apartment that I rent out, I don't benefit from this?
You might benefit, but not very much.
Corker insisted on Monday that he had no knowledge of this provision when he announced his support for the bill on Friday, and GOP leaders backed him up. Democrats say either way, it's still a needless giveaway to a thriving industry, especially when this bill also pares back the popular home mortgage deduction for some homeowners, Elaine.
Well, Nancy, Republican Senator Susan Collins joined Senator Mike Lee Monday in supporting the GOP tax plan. Does this solidify Republican hopes of passing the legislation this week?
Absolutely. They now believe that passage is all but assured in the Senate and in the House as well. We have been talking to House Republicans all day long. Some of the dozen or so House Republicans who voted no the last time around are no's again. But Republicans haven't seen any additional fall off in support. So they think they still have the numbers they need in the House and the Senate, and that these votes are essentially a formality at this point.
Well, Republican Senator Jeff Flake is still uncommitted, and Senator John McCain will miss the tax vote as he's recovering from the side effects of cancer treatment. How crucial are those votes in the Senate?
Well, senators on the Republican side can only afford to lose 2 votes. So clearly they were comfortable enough with the fact that John McCain wouldn't be there that they still went ahead and scheduled this vote for Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when the House vote wraps up. And that's a sign that GOP leaders in the Senate believe that Flake will come around at the end of the day. And even if he doesn't, they know that they can afford to lose not just McCain's vote, but one more vote and still pass it by the narrowest of margins, with the vice president serving as the tie-breaking vote. And that's one reason that the vice president actually postponed a trip to Jerusalem, is that he knew that he might be needed in this fashion.
Well, the Joint Committee on Taxation, as you know, has said that the bill is projected to add at least $1 trillion to deficits over 10 years. And now new reports say the tax plan's costs could exceed $2 trillion if the bill's temporary tax cuts are made permanent. Is there a sense that these projections could spook so-called deficit hawks ahead of the vote?
You know, I think if those deficit hawks were going to be spooked, they would have been spooked already. Some of them have said that they don't love how much this bill adds to the debt, that they would have structured things differently, but that they're not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And they do believe, despite some projections, that actually there will be so much economic growth from this tax plan that a lot of these tax cuts will, as Republicans Republicans like to say, pay for themselves. Democrats argue that is not the case, and that round two will be when Republicans see how much has been added to the debt and come back to say, well, of course, now we need some spending cuts, particularly cuts to entitlements like Medicare and Social Security. That's really what has Democrats so worried. But as of right now, even sort of the most well-known deficit hawks like Bob Corker have decided that they don't want to be left behind on this historic tax cut plan, and they are voting yes despite some of the misgivings they may have.
Well, meanwhile, Congress has to pass a spending bill by Friday, but disagreements over opioid funding, immigration, and health care could hamstring negotiations with Democrats. Are there concerns on the Hill that lawmakers won't be able to reach an agreement to avoid a government shutdown?
There certainly are concerns, but GOP leaders have been telling us privately all along that they are making good progress on their negotiations with Democratic leaders, and that there is absolutely no appetite for a shutdown on either side, particularly a week before Christmas. So while there's sort of a buffet of options that are being looked at right now, GOP leaders intend, as soon as they get the tax vote behind them, to move quite quickly to hammer out some kind of an agreement with Democrats, even if it's a short-term agreement that only gets the government funded through January or February, and then they come back and deal with some of these thornier issues in the new year.
Busy week ahead. Nancy Cordes, thanks so much, Nancy.